Okay, so we are recording right now.
Okay, I wasn't nervous until right now. So, mine is on same-sex marriage, and I guess I'll just jump right in. If you wanna. Okay. So, in the summer of 2015, same-sex marriage became legal throughout all the United States. With that change, same-sex marriage has become more socially accepted and also more common thing to come across. Even with same-sex marriage being legal, there is still a debate for some people if that is an okay thing to do and or support. Same-sex marriage may be legal, but that does not mean it is good. 50 years ago, smoking became a popular part of our culture. It was legal. It wasn't until later on that we realized how dangerous smoking actually was for those who were smoking and also for everyone else around those people smoking. Same-sex marriage is being almost forced to be normal, okay, and part of our culture. It is common to hear that it is their choice and it isn't even going to affect those who don't support or agree with it. You do what you want and they will do what they want, and who are we to say that they can't do what they want, right? Wrong. Same-sex marriage is affecting everyone, including you, in one way or another, and possibly in ways that you didn't even realize. Same-sex marriage is affecting our society. On the gays and lesbian side, they are trying hard to keep it, but there isn't anything for it to compare a same-sex marriage than opposite-sex marriage. In fact, many studies have come out that claim to prove there is no difference. The American Psychology Association even made a statement saying that not a single study has found children of lesbian or gay parenting to be disadvantaged in any significant respect relative to children of heterosexual parents. Warren Marks, a professor at the Louisiana State University, decided to do a little investigation on that and wrote about it in an article. Marks looked at 59 studies total that claimed same-sex parenting was no different or equal to opposite-sex parenting. And it was quite interesting what she found. She found that less than a third of those studies had over 100 participants, and some of this was 5. She found that the majority of those studies, the participants were dominantly Caucasian, well-educated, and middle to upper class. She also found that 26 of the 59 studies were done without a heterosexual parenting comparison group. To top it off, some of the studies, when you look closer at their data, it didn't even back up the claims they were making. Same-sex marriage is affecting the overall health of everyone. There's a book called Getting It Straight, and in that book, there's a chapter called Is Homosexuality a Health Risk? It is not too surprising when you read that homosexuals have a higher risk of contracting HIV and AIDS. What is surprising that homosexuals have a higher risk of getting STDs, gonorrhea, hepatitis A, B, and C, syphilis, long-term depression, anal cancer, and a whole new type of cancer that they found only in homosexuals. Now again, homosexuals may say that this is their choice, and it won't affect you. They are the only ones dealing with these added health risks. Wrong again. The chapter also points out 3 important things. First, homosexuals on average have more sexual partners. Second, gay men at some point usually have sex with women, and lesbians usually at some point have sex with men. And finally, third, that homosexuals were less likely to share if they did have a sexually transmitted illness, which means that all those health risks are getting passed around to anyone who has an active sex life. So this is affecting everyone. Now you may ask, what can the government do? Same-sex marriage is legal and those people have rights. Well, though smoking was legal, the government saw that it was unhealthy and put in place policies and laws to make smoking less advertised, more expensive, and more particular on where you are allowed to smoke. Shouldn't we worry about protecting the children being adopted and raised by same-sex parents? Should we allow for same-sex marriage to be advertised and seen as something that is normal compared to opposite-sex marriage? Are we ready to have same-sex relationships be discussed and encouraged in our children's sex education curriculums? I'm not saying that we should take away the rights of people being able to marry whoever they want, just that the government should make it more publicly known the health risks involved in same-sex relationships. Okay, that's my speech. So now, do you guys have questions to go with that, or do you need a minute to finish filling out the?
Let's see.
I have a question.
Okay.
Should we treat all same-sex marriage as equality with equality?
Well, yeah, I think everyone's equal in that, you know, they do have that right, and that's a right that they have the right to have and marry whoever they want. We don't treat people differently because they get sick. Like, I don't know. Just that it should be more publicly known of having that kind of style.
Thank you.
Marin,
No other-
so oh,
No other.
okay. Marin, so you mentioned that homosexuals have a much higher chance of sexually transmitted diseases and things like that. Is it because they are generally found to be more sexually active than heterosexual people?
That was like one of the main points they were talking about. Just, you know, that's not normal sex over our.
Okay.
Just the actions make it more likely for them to get those things.
I have a question. Did you find it hard to find research to really kind of back up the dangers of same-sex marriage, since it's been such a new thing? Was that difficult to find that research to kind of back it up?
Well, the interesting thing in finding it wasn't hard to find research. It was hard to find research that was valid, though. Like, half of the articles I read end up being like not even true. They would have like really bad. What's the word I'm thinking of? Where like it didn't have credibility, and so there was a ton of research out there trying to prove that everything was okay and normal for same-sex relationships, but most of those weren't even validated in any way scientifically. And so it was really hard to find ones that actually were telling the truth, and so there was lots of stuff I found that came out before same-sex marriage was legal, and that was where I found most of my stuff, because I feel like now people are kind of afraid to that because there is so much false stuff against like saying the opposite. So it was interesting to research.
I have a quick question. When you were looking at the policies, and obviously our country has accepted some of that, did you find that some of the arguments that you presented in your speech today were used in combating or opposing the policies as they were being established, or was there just really no fight to it?
Like I didn't research a whole ton into the policies and stuff, but I didn't find any right off the bat, so I don't think there's a whole ton out there yet about same-sex marriage. And so I think it's just been because there's still, I feel like, so many legal arguments about making it equal and stuff in businesses. So I feel like that is still keeping them busy, and they haven't got yet to settling down and working on policies and stuff like that. Because I didn't find anything, but there could be something that I could answer. I don't know if I answered that question. But it was hard because it's a tricky topic because it is people's rights, and I had a hard time. Like, I feel like I wouldn't have been comfortable giving this speech in front of other people that had different beliefs than that makes sense. Because I don't in any way see people like that as lesser or unequal. So I almost feel bad saying stuff like that, but should we go on to the next person? Oh, and side note, exciting news, I found out I'm having a boy this week. So,
Congratulations.
I don't know who's next. Since I switched to my computer, my list started late. It didn't give me the ones that were put in before I even come on.
I see Aaron. I think Aaron is next.
Would somebody mind copying Aaron's name and email and posting it again? Because I don't have the name.
Sorry, what?
Could you just copy and paste your name and email into the chat? For some reason,
Oh,
when I switched
I can do that really fast.
computer, I didn't get the list until Jenna cut it out.
Okay, so you want me to put my name and email in the chat really fast?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Let me do that really quick. Did you get it? Okay, great. So, am I second or third? Am I going next then? Okay. All right. Let me just pull up my speech then. Okay, so I did my speech on on pornography addiction and its negative effects on individuals and relationships. Okay, I'll just start. Before my aunt met my uncle, she was married to another man whom she believed she would spend the rest of her life with. Their courtship went smoothly, and he always treated her respectfully. However, things began to drastically change soon after they married. Over time, she noticed his conduct beginning to change. At first, he withdrew. He did not want to spend much time with her, and she could see he was losing interest. In addition to his withdrawal, he began developing controlling and manipulative behaviors, and on countless occasions he would tell her that she was not beautiful enough. He would even put her on the scale, telling her she needed to lose weight. It slowly became an emotionally abusive relationship. After much confusion regarding her husband's devastating new treatment of her, she decided to do something about it. Intuition led her to check her computer history, and what she found was disheartening. Her husband had developed an addiction to pornography, triggering his changed demeanor. This experience left their relationship scarred, and she struggled with low self-esteem for a long time. Due to his unwillingness to change, they later divorced. My aunt's story demonstrates the deadly power pornography can have on individuals and relationships. However, her relationship is not isolated, or her experience is not isolated. Countless individuals have dealt with it. Shortly after her divorce, my aunt's sister's husband also developed a pornography addiction, leading him to become abusive and unfaithful. They too later divorced. I have also known many others who have struggled with it. Pornography is an issue that has stirred up much debate in our society and has become very commonplace. Statistics reveal that every second, 28,258 people are watching pornography on the internet, and every 39 minutes, a new video involving pornography is being made. It is a hazardous addiction that possesses the capacity to destroy individuals and relationships if not treated. Many who engage in pornography do not think they are harming themselves in any way. In fact, many conclude that it is a good way to educate themselves on sexual matters. They believe it will enhance their intimate life with their partner, and claim it is good for their physical and mental health. However, much research has found otherwise. One of the reasons pornography is so dangerous to individuals is because it's exceedingly addictive. Several have reported that its addictive nature is more intense than that of cocaine, making it hard to quit notwithstanding the consequences. This addiction commonly leads to feelings of anxiety, depression, inadequacy, low self-esteem, and occasionally eating disorders. Every person that I've encountered who has struggled with pornography addiction has had to overcome depression or anxiety and feelings of low self-esteem. It is a battle that many struggle to win, and some can never break free. When a person is hooked on pornography, their behavior and the way they perceive the opposite gender is changed. They can become more aggressive and see others as sex objects, as well as become sexually promiscuous. We saw this transpire in the story of my aunt and her first husband, as well as with her sister and her husband. It is clear that pornography damages the way individuals think, which destroys themselves, but also the relationships they have with loved ones. The story of my aunt and her sister exposed just how destructive pornography can be to relationships. Current research has revealed that pornography can influence an individual's capacity to be intimate with their spouse. They are so used to being aroused by the pornography that they have difficulty being affectionate and loving towards their partner. As they remain addicted, they gradually lose sight of the significance of having loving, strong relationships. They substitute the intimacy they feel towards their spouse with pornography, causing their emotional detachment. Many believe that a person's pornography addiction does not affect their spouse. Unfortunately, this is not true. According to the United Families International, the addict's spouse observes their partner pulling away from them. This causes much hurt and pain, such as feelings of inadequacy, low self-esteem, depression, and the belief that they've been rejected or replaced. As the addict is gradually exposed to the perfection they see on the screen, they become quick to see the shortcomings of their spouse and can grow critical of them, which is precisely what happened to my aunt. Her husband would frequently belittle her, explaining that she was not beautiful enough. In his mind, she didn't meet the pornography's unrealistic expectations of perfection. In the end, it ruined her and her relationship with her husband. Because pornography presents such a vast danger to individuals and relationships, it cannot be disregarded. Since it is so widespread, the odds that you know someone who is addicted is immense. The best thing we can do is to be supportive of those who are dealing with pornography addiction and encourage them to get help. There are several efficient treatment programs available to those struggling. It only takes one person to make a difference. Since pornography is extremely commonplace today, many may not understand the danger it presents. With all the research being done, we now possess the opportunity to speak out against it by educating as many as we can, including our own families, so that they can be safeguarded from pornography's harmful disposition. We need to teach our children the negative consequences of pornography and instruct them on what to do if they encounter any pornographic material. The more that are educated, the greater our chances as a society of successfully overcoming this fight with pornography. And that's my speech. So,
Good job.
thanks. Do you guys have any questions or?
Does somebody ever get over the urge of watching porn?
From people that I've talked to and from research, I don't think so. I had a friend who was addicted to porn for a very, very long time. And since he was 8, and he eventually overcame pornography, he was able to stop looking at it. But those urges are always there. So I think the temptation to see pornography is always there. But so I think you just need to be really careful. I think you could probably compare it to, and I would imagine like if you were addicted to drugs, it's basically as a drug. The temptation is always there, and I imagine it's pretty easy to go back. But I think you just have to be really careful. So. Sorry, say that again. I can't hear very well.
Are there any laws or policies that you found?
Laws or policies put in place? I wasn't able to find any. I researched a couple, and I wasn't able to find a whole lot. I mean, I'm sure there are some out there, but I just wasn't able to find any. So.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Did you find any thing that was talking about when you should start talking to your children about pornography, things like that? Or when
Oh, sorry.
It does
So
either
I
one.
wasn't able to find anything specifically on pornography, but I know in some of the research that I found, they talked about like putting. Oh, I would say talk to them about it as young as you can, but
Yeah.
I feel like put filters on the computer, and just do as much as you can to safeguard them. But I think since it's starting out so young, I mean, people are getting addicted at a very young age. I mean, 6, 7, 8, 9. I mean, the friend that I was talking about, he was addicted when he was 8 years old, and that's really young. And so, I think you can start talking to them about it. I couldn't tell you a specific age, but I mean, just try to tell them as soon as you can. Hey, if you see anything, this is what you do. You come and get me, or just something like that. I mean, I haven't had to deal with that yet as a parent, but I think as soon as you're able to, like, just if you see anything bad on the internet or because pop-up ads come up all the time, or magazines, or it's everywhere, and it comes to you nowadays. And so I think just as soon as you are able, you feel comfortable with talking to them about it, definitely before the age of 8 or even the age of 6, I think you should really talk to them, because it's getting younger and younger. And
Can
it
I
feels
recommend
sad.
a good book, actually?
Go for it. Yeah.
There's a good book called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. Very good. I have gone through it with my kids. What they're seeing it's true. It's a lot earlier than ever, and you got to prepare them before they actually see it. So
Yeah.
I've got little kids, and we've gone over those parts of the book, so they can recognize it. But it's a good book for all of you moms. Really, everybody should have it in their house.
That's awesome. Maybe I'll get that, because I just have a 2-year-old, and so I haven't. Obviously, she's too innocent to know any of that. But I know eventually that you'll have to start talking to them about it. And just going off of like pornography coming to you nowadays, it's like I just want to tell you something. So my dad, he is the bishop of our ward, and I know we're not supposed to get into religion, but I just wanted to tell you this. But he just became the bishop of this ward a year ago, and almost immediately, like a couple weeks later, after he became the bishop, he started getting these text messages and it's a different number every time, but they're very just these sleazy text messages, and some of them have pornographic pictures, and they're just from this. I don't know who they're from, but it's just from this. I don't know. It's just people out to try to get you hooked on pornography, and it's just really sad. So you just really have to be careful, So, yeah, just do everything you can to talk to your kids about it. And I know I'm going to have to start doing that with my daughter, because it is out there. It's a real problem. So, anybody have any more questions, or should we go to the next person? Who's next? I'm not even sure who's
Jennifer. I think we've got Jennifer next.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm next. Okay. Thank you. That was real informative. Okay. So I am Jennifer Gingrich. I am a child care director. I work with different cultures and diversities. Today, my discussion is about abortion. I am here today to expose you to the risk of abortion and to be a voice for those who cannot speak for themselves, for innocent babies subject to their mothers' decisions, by discussing the social issues causing abortion and the emotional and physical effects it can have. Women are unfairly surrounded by voices encouraging them to participate in abortion, and often pressured into it without fully understanding the effects. I, along with every woman of the world, was at one time impressionable by peers, parents, culture, advertisements, community, and schools. I remember walking downtown after school with a group of friends on a brisk day. My peers were excited to investigate the new medical clinic called Planned Parenthood. As I walked away from the clinic, I was alone. A concerned woman gave me a pamphlet. This had images of the truth. Visuals were unforgettable, exposing the truth about an abortion. I still today have the visuals of limbs dismantled from a suction. Young women specifically are targeted to participate in abortion. According to the CDC, women in their 20s accounted for a majority of the abortions in 2014. The percentage of the abortions reported as early as medical abortions increased from 110% from 2005 to 2014, with an increase of 1% from 2013 to 2014. In the mid-late 1800s, anti-laws of abortions were from state to state. Abortions happened due to the fear of overpopulation. Recently, in the media, we hear of a Jane Doe, a pregnant immigrant as young as 17, who won the right to receive an abortion. She replied, "This is my life, my decision. I want a better future. I want justice. It is never justifiable to take an innocent human life deliberately. A law called the Unborn Victim of Violence Act in 2004 is a United States law which recognizes an embryo or fetus in utero as a legal victim. The law defines child in utero as a member of the specific Homo sapien as a stage of development who is carried into the womb. Most women who receive an abortion are 83% unmarried. According to the National Abortion Federation, between the ages of 17 to 30 in high school, attending college, or cohabitating, and mostly women who live in a metropolitan area. A study in China reveals that a young woman receives an abortion is at risk due to the high hormone levels that they have never reached before normally. Cancer is linked to the abortions are breast cancer, cervical, liver, and ovarian. The risk increases by 2.3 times, and after the first abortion, 4.92 after the second abortion. A study from a psychological consequences of abortion among the post-abortion care seeking women in Tehran. Women suffer from a depression is over 60.5%, and the worry about not being able to conceive later, chances of getting pregnant later affects the body to the localized uterus, cervical damage, trauma, and the abortion done with a manual vacuum aspiration, which causes a suction, curlage, and dilation. In Section 1 of the 14th Amendment states, shall any state deprive of a woman's life, liberty, or property without due process or law, nor deny any persons within its own justifications of equal protection of the law. The father has a right to his unborn child, the property of DNA. Men suffer too. A study of men in abortion. Men experience trauma, question their roles, feeling the loss of guilt, loneliness, frustration, sexual dysfunction, disfascinated from the loss of possibility, but becoming a father and a husband is a psychological threat to the family. Men have a right to be a part of the decision between a pregnancy. I propose that by federal law, before an abortion is performed, all women are required to take a fact-giving class on abortion. They will see and screen an abortion being performed, just like they do as within AIDS and STDs. The advice we have on these women screened it is also by a psychologist who will test for mental well-being before such a changing procedure would be performed. I propose that DNA testing of the unborn baby be done before the abortion is allowed. The sperm donor may be informed of the woman's pregnancy and her plans to end his baby's life. I propose that we reform an abortion rights and think about the risk and the right to life, not murdering a child for convenience. Back to my experience. At that moment, as a young adult, my heart sunk. I knew something was not right. My parents didn't tell me about it. The word abortion seemed to be a cool thing. The fact that it is not a child, a woman who gets themselves pregnant, follows up with abortion, does not know the truth. Sex was sold as a normal, and even our school gave out free condoms. This implied no responsibility with no consequences. The world is discovering more and more about the effects of abortion. I say to you, the responsibility lies upon the government to educate and prevent abortions for the future health risk of our women. My purpose is to come to you today to help people understand life begins at conception. Abortion is murder, as it is the act of taking a human life. We demand a system that recognizes that human rights. It destroys not only the life of unborn child, but the lives of the young women and men who are suffering from this decision. It ruins the peace and simplicity that should come from their future planned family. Thank you. Any questions?
Good job.
I don't really have a question, but I thought it was fitting that there was like a baby crying in the background.
Oh, sorry.
No, it was just like.
And they're 2 doors down. I mean.
And I absolutely love your ideas of how we can lessen, like not having them. We don't have to watch a video and actually know
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I agree that that's what changed my mindset as a child was, as a 14-year-old, was the visual, that the pamphlet. It was pretty cool. Any more questions?
Have you seen any, as you were looking into your policies, you mentioned that it should be required that DNA testing happen so that the father can be informed, because many times the father is just completely oblivious to what's going on. So have you seen any instances where they've been able to enforce that? Because like with food stamps or any other state assistance, you have to divulge the father's identity before the child is eligible for benefits. You can't list that there's no father. But the father can't force the mother to tell him. So I'm just wondering, have there been any instances where someone has been able to get a judge to permit DNA testing?
I have not personally seen any instances. That's a really good question. But when it came to that immigrant 17-year-old, there was no question with her trial and who the father was. So I'm assuming that there is no question. Because the right of privacy that the feminists have brought upon.
I have a question. Has this been your topic then, your threat to the family, your topic through the semester so far?
It has. It's been
okay.
My topic. Yeah.
Has anything changed the way that you were maybe previously thinking, or do you just feel stronger about the topic, or have you learned something new, or have any of your ideas changed?
That's a very good question. What I've learned is that I'm more vocal about it because I do have facts and I have research. I just told a daycare parent recently that I'm doing a research paper about abortion, and I said it's really controversy. But then, I just have more vocal. I said, I am a daycare provider. There's a reason that I'm not opposed of abortion. And they're like, oh, yeah, you're a daycare provider. So it's opened some doors. And then when I told people about the episode with China and they're getting more cancer due to this, people are like, oh, so we need to educate more to know about the real risk of cancer. Thank you for your question. Any more questions?
I kind of have a question, and I'm not sure if this is a great question to ask, but do you think there are people that would justify abortion for in cases of abuse, or if the child is not going to survive, or in cases like that?
That is a very good question. I did find some research about how people would say, like, medically, their child inside the womb is in harm's way. So we have to look at that as we don't have one patient anymore. We have two patients. We need to take care of the child within the womb and the mother. That's a great question.
That's true. I just going off of that, I don't want to spend too long on that, but my husband's cousin's wife, that's right, is pregnant right now, and she's in her 3rd trimester, and she has they recently found out that the baby has this horrible disease where the joints, every joint in her body just locks, and so upon birth, as the baby is born, every single bone in her body is going to break, and she might not make it. And so the doctors recommended an abortion. And I think it almost got to the point where, I mean, they obviously they're very anti-abortion and everything, but you'd almost get to the point where, they kind of got to the point where they were wondering, gosh, is it almost better to abort the baby because the baby might not make it and they'll be in so much pain. It's really hard sometimes, I think. And obviously they're not going to have an abortion. They're going to try to save the baby's life, but it is hard sometimes, I think.
It is
just in
hard
very,
sometimes.
very few cases.
No, I agree. That's a very tricky situation to be in. But because we have so much technology these days, we think things are going to happen to our children and because of the technology. But sometimes things are not as severe as somebody may seem. So I guess, again, we're treating the patient and we're treating the child.
Right.
Because if we didn't know this information, would we give that child an abortion? And
Right.
plus, like, would we give a child who has ADHD abortion? Would we give a child that has Down syndrome abortion? I mean, when does it stop? The question is when.
Right, yeah.
And there's so many abortions attempted now, and I think there's a fine line where, like with that situation, there might be some more acceptance with that. But the problem we're really having right now is the risk of these college students are getting pregnant, going off and getting an abortion, and they're repeating the cycle. And then, like in China, there are only 1 to 2 children is their rule, and so they're getting pregnant. They have to get rid of the second child. They're using it like a condom, and so we need to educate those more in that field. But there are some special circumstances, and that's through prayer.
Right.
We're not supposed to talk about church, but
I think that's great. Yeah,
that's through bonding between 2 people.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great question.
I'm gonna be back. I have to get my baby up. She's just screaming in the back room. I will be right back.
Any more questions? That was a great question. Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay, I'm next, but should I wait for Erin to come back, or should I just start? Well, I guess I have to wait because she has to evaluate me, right? So we'll give her a couple minutes.
Okay.
Hopefully she can just grab the baby and come back so it's not too long.
Potty break.
Concessions.
Well, we have a minute. There was actually something I want. It's not really a question, so I thought I'd keep it to myself. But like with my sister, they told her baby was going to have spina bifida and that it was never going to walk and it was going to be this awful situation. But they obviously still had the baby, and he didn't even have spina bifida. So it's amazing how many times babies are misdiagnosed and people abort when that baby could have been totally fine. Right. And even with spina bifida, 25% of babies with spina bifida live with it not knowing they have spina bifida their whole life. So it's just, I think it's really sad that people take those misdiagnoses and abort their babies when they really probably didn't have that reason to. So.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there is misdiagnosis. We're putting too much emphasis upon, medical technology. They don't know everything. Doctors don't know everything.
Yep.
Okay. So now that everybody's back, right? Yeah. Okay. So I'm Carrie Gongora, and my little speech today is about technology addiction. Technology has made leaps and bounds over the last several decades. We have evolved into a society that utilizes wireless phones, portable computers, and gaming consoles in nearly every home. In fact, the Entertainment Software Association discovered in their 2015 survey that, quote, 4 out of 5 homes own some sort of technological device that is used to play games, close quote. That is 80% of American households. This staggering statistic sheds light on the real threat that modern-day families face: technology addiction. Technology addiction can be defined as the compulsive need for and use of technology in all its forms. In McCloskey's 2017 study on parent perceptions of mobile device use, they found that 89% of families report that their children use technology alone, either occasionally or on a daily basis. This gives validity to the concern that technology addiction is a growing threat. It is a risk that threatens many homes, and if we are not aware of it and actively defending against it, it can take hold of our loved ones before we know it. A study performed in 2014 found that technology addiction can help those who suffer from certain mental illnesses, such as those that struggle with face-to-face communication and expression of personal lives that establishes bonding relationships. However, this is a very small number of the population, and these people are already being seen by a physician and are assigned treatment through the medical professional. The majority of those who experience technology addiction are not those who suffer from these disorders, but are people just like you and me. Let me share with you an experience from my own life. When I started college, I had a 2-year-old daughter. She was bright and active, always getting into things, like every other toddler. And because of her curiosity, I found it difficult to study for my education and watch her at the same time. Then I discovered my daughter's love for the movie Nacho Libre. It was cute how she would dress like the characters, she would practice her wrestling skills, she'd wrestle her inflatable donkey all over the living room. The best thing about it is that she could watch this movie over and over. At the time, Nacho Libre felt like a lifesaver, but soon something strange started happening. My toddler began throwing tantrums whenever we turned off the movie. She began to lose interest in her Fisher-Price Princess Castle that she used to love, and she, instead of wrestling her donkey, she used to ride it up and down the hallway. She began to only want one thing, Nacho Libre. It was then that I realized my 2-year-old daughter had become addicted to technology. Unfortunately, similar stories can be found all over the United States. Dr. Greenfield, an assistant clinical professor of psychiatry at the University of Connecticut, stated that in 2017, quote, "The numbers of referral and patients that we get calls from has probably gone up tenfold in the last 20 years. We have had a 1,000% increase in the numbers of cases." Close quote. Clearly, the threat of technology addiction needs to be addressed, but in the United States, nothing has been done because there has been no formal appeal to make technology addiction a DSM-5 disorder. The first step to make this appeal is to collect accurate and substantive data in the United States. Fortunately, in August of 2017, the National Institutes of Health organized and authorized funding for a 2-year study to determine the severity of technology addiction in the United States. The data from this study can be used to endorse formal acceptance of technology addiction and give local agencies the authority to promote technology addiction awareness programs and establish technology addiction recovery centers to treat those affected. Although the data collected from the 2-year study will not be available until the end of 2019, it doesn't mean that family and child advocates need to wait before advocating for change and awareness. Workshops, bloggers, community education programs, and other social media outlets can be used to incorporate and establish literature that promotes mental health through the appropriate use of technology. Educating the public on how to avoid, identify, and recover from technology addiction will give them the power they need to protect their families so that they may all become better functioning and contributing members of a healthy society. Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question. So I feel like this is a big thing, and I didn't realize how big until I was listening to all the things you were saying. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But how, as parents, do they know when it's an addiction? Like, I feel like there's some parents that are really overprotective, and other parents that are completely oblivious. So how, like, what do we define it as? How do you define it as an addiction? I guess I should say.
Thank you. That's a good question. What I came across and the best definition I could find was that technology addiction is the compulsive need for or the compulsive use. So it's when it becomes something that they can't be without. So, for example, children or youth on their phones on like Facebook, they check it every 5 minutes, whether they have something to do or not. Or you sit down on your computer and you immediately go to your Facebook page or the news or something just out of habit. It's no longer with a purpose. It's that compulsive need to look at it. And that's how you can tell. That's why it's so hard, because it's so easy to cross that line to where it's no longer we controlling the technology, it's the technology controlling us.
Yeah. I guess with that, I wonder, did you read anything that talked about like how parents had addictions to technology and how that made their kids more likely or anything? I feel like if a parent was also addicted, they wouldn't even notice or care that their child was addicted.
Yeah. There hasn't been a whole lot of study in the United States on technology addiction, which is part of the reason why it's getting out of hand. In China and Southeast Asia, there's so much. I mean, they have over 10,000 people at a time in Southeast Asia receiving treatment for technology addiction. There's parts of the world that are way ahead of us on observing what's happening with the technology advancement. That being said, even though there's not study on technology addiction, there's a lot of study on addiction itself. And it has been proven that those who struggle or have addictive tendencies, or it's in their family, they are more prone to become addicted to technology in one way or another, whether that be through social media, pornography, news outlets, and so on. So yes, there is a link, and it's something that awareness, people need to know that this is something that can be passed on.
Carrie, so what do you think that like we can do to decrease our technology addiction? Or I don't know. Like what did you find? Like did they offer any suggestions as to how to do this? Okay.
Yes. And I didn't address it in this because this was more of just to bring awareness of and the need for change, But I did come across a great site that I used for my blog posting, the paper that we wrote for the blog assignment. And it was through the Department of Child Development, the Women's and Children's Hospital. And they came up with 6 ways that parents can prevent or lessen technology addiction in their home. And that comes down to limiting TV use, technology use, not just TV, but any sort of technology, according to the APA's recommendation. So that can be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and a half a day. That's it. Parents should make technology a part of a schedule so that it's not just whenever they have free time. It's actual dedicated time so that they still get their technology time. They still get to check their stuff and do the things they want to do. But it's all part of a schedule so that it doesn't consume their life. Avoid placing TVs and other technology in children's bedrooms. Practice tech-free time. So this could be dinner, study time, bedtime. Also tech-free zones, so nothing in the bedrooms or dining room or in the cars. Teach and practice moderation in all aspects of your life, and have that expand over technology, so that they can look at you and look at your example and say, well, yeah, they practice moderation, in junk food. They don't eat sweets all the time and they don't use their technology. It just becomes normal because it's over their whole life. And then their last tip was to monitor access to technology. Make sure that you're with your children when they're using it, not only for safety for them, to be sure and that you know what they're being exposed to, but you can also help them remember, okay, 5 more minutes and then you got to be done. Wrap things up so that they don't feel cut off from their technology. They are more in charge of it. They can be in charge of their time. Any other questions?
I have a question actually. I kind of just what you were saying about your daughter, how when she was a 2-year-old, she found this the movie, and I thought it was funny that you brought up Nacho Libre. Hi. Well, I guess what my question is, what do you think? Did they offer suggestions on like alternatives to technology? And this is really awful to admit this, but sometimes she watches technology a little more than she should because I'm a student. And so sometimes technology is really nice. Hi. Hi. Sometimes technology is really nice to have. Don't touch. Especially when you're trying to get your classes done. And so I guess what alternatives could we use? And actually, this would be really nice for me because she probably watches it way too much. So that I can get my homework done.
That's exactly what happened to me. I fell right into that simply because of the desperation. You know, you have so much in your lives, especially nowadays. It seems like our lives get more and more packed that we just don't have time to multitask efficiently. You know, you can't really pay full attention when they're that little and do your studying and reading and all of that. But one thing I saw is I found a preschool website that offered, I think it was like 151 ways to entertain your toddler. And it was all activities that could be prepped beforehand. And I actually started doing this with my daughter, and I had a box that just I had laminated sheets that were Play-Doh, you know, and she could put Play-Doh on it and make different shapes. And she had things that she could cut with her safety scissors, and she had pages she could color, and she had her music toys, and I basically rotated stuff so that it always felt new to her. I really only had 10 or 6 different activities, but by rotating it, she was able to experience it new all the time. And so it's a lot about just being prepared ahead of time. Don't wait until the last minute. Find activities that don't take a lot of work, but can be something that's new to her, and she'll get excited about it.
I think that's awesome. I like your suggestions. I think that's great. Hello. I'll have to do that because I do admit she does watch it probably a little too much. So that's great. Thank you.
Well, I think a lot of us feel that way. You know, it's really hard. There's a fine line. Just doing what you got to do to get done, but it's about taking each day at a time. So thanks. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, I'll go. I'm Maren Nielsen. The threat that I chose this year is the negative effects of media, but I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically on internet safety within our elementary schools. So when I was in the 4th grade, it was the year 1986. I attended Kroll Elementary School. My teacher's name was Mr. Morgan. He was tall, thin, had dark wavy hair and a scruffy beard. One thing I remember most about my 4th grade year was that Mr. Morgan's favorite animal was a penguin. It didn't take long before my favorite animal also became a penguin. My 4th grade year was full of wonderful, innocent memories. Now I want you to think back when you were in the 4th grade. I bet you remember your teacher. You can probably even imagine his or her face and some of their mannerisms. You might even remember their favorite animal. Imagine now sitting at your desk doing some of the tasks that you were expected to complete. Most of us probably did not have any type of computer or laptop on our desk. I did not have access to the internet in elementary school. The extent of my computer experiences was going once a week to the computer lab to play Oregon Trail. Succumbing to the effects of dysentery was the worst threat I faced as a 4th grader while using the computer. Now fast forward to 2018. Chromebooks are a staple in most classrooms. The internet is something that is accessed on a daily basis. Children are being trained how to use the internet to find information for their projects by using Google. Kids are creating PowerPoints using Google Docs and are becoming masters of technology. Technology is a wonderful thing and can really play a positive role in our children's learning. However, technology can have negative effects proven by years of research. Last year, when my daughter was in the 4th grade, she came home and told me that a boy in her class Googled the word sex. He found some inappropriate pictures and started showing some of the other children in the classroom. I'd spoken previously to my daughter about pornography and gave her tools to avoid it. My daughter knew what her classmate was doing was dangerous, so she quietly told her teacher what had happened. My daughter's 4th grade experience was not as innocent as ours might have been. According to the Federal Communications Commission's website, Congress enacted the Children's Internet Protection Act, CIPA, in 2000 to address concern about children's access to obscene or harmful content over the internet. SEPA imposes certain requirements on schools or libraries that receive discounts for internet access or internal connections through the E-rate program. Some of these requirements include internet filtering and hosting an internet safety assembly a year at elementary schools. In 2016, there were only 21 states that required schools and/or libraries to adopt policies to protect minors. In California, schools require internet filters. The problem is the federal government leaves what to filter and block to local authorities. In an article called Preserving Internet Expression While Protecting Our Children, the author states that some aggressive members of the online pornographic community trick people into accessing their pornographic sites. Thus, children inadvertently encounter pornographic sites when casually surfing the internet for acceptable purposes related to schoolwork or entertainment. Whether it is voluntary or involuntary, children all across the country come across pornographic material on the internet, some of which may damage their well-being. The author also states, quote, "Unfortunately, many of the attempts to keep this indecent material away from children directly conflict with the First Amendment," unquote. In an article called Safe and Responsible Use of the Internet, a Guide for Educators, the researchers give a wonderful solution. They state, quote, "The primary focus for elementary students should be on maintaining a safe and secure environment. Elementary students should use the internet in an environment that specifically restricts their use to sites that have been previewed to determine their appropriateness and educational value." I'm speaking to you today to tell you that the regulations like SEPA and our state laws aren't doing enough to protect our children. Filters can't protect them from everything obscene and hurtful. What I'm asking we focus on is, first, let's make sure every school educates children on internet safety and clearly explains school policies. I researched my school district's technology plan, and it states, quote, "All students will be knowledgeable of internet safety issues, including cyberbullying, avoiding online predators, and maintaining online privacy," end quote. Nowhere does it talk about teaching children to avoid pornography. Obviously, with my daughter's experience, fourth graders need to be taught that searching out pornography at school is unacceptable and harmful. Local leaders and authorities need to have a clearer guidelines on what needs to be filtered. Obscene and harmful is not specific enough. We also need to make laws that allow children in elementary schools to only use pre-approved internet sites. Teachers can provide access to these websites through links. The National Coalition Against Censorship is fighting against internet filtering in schools and libraries. They believe filters to infringe on students' free expression rights, that it's discriminatory, too costly, and overblocks useful information. Please help us keep the children in our society innocent as long as we can. Help us protect these children by implementing stricter laws to protect them from dangerous media on the internet. If we don't, it will cause our children to lose their innocence, damage their well-being, and distract them from gaining a valuable education. That's my speech. Do you have any questions?
Were there any? Did you find any consequences for the young people showing sexual things over like Snapchat or the media? Were there any consequences?
Not that I found, but there are consequences if it's used on school property. There are school policies, but they're all very different. But I also did find out that the schools also have ability to check kids' emails, and they can track and see what the kids are doing, and that they can delete things, no questions asked, which kind of made me a little concerned, because I thought, what if something happened, whether there was an email sent to a child or one of our children had an issue, and the school could just completely delete it, and there's no policy on what they have to keep. But it just depends on school policies what will happen to kids if they're using their school email or things like that, doing those types of things at school. It just depends.
Man, my daughter uses a lot of like the internet for schoolwork and things like that, and she comes home and she logs on to the school stuff, and she can chat with her friends, but her teacher has told her that only school appropriate stuff, you can only talk about school, you can't talk about anything else, things like that. So what role do you think teachers would play in this? Like, what do you think they should do to help with this?
In a lot of the research that I read, they said the teachers need to know what the kids are doing and to not be oblivious. And in my daughter's class, her teacher was completely oblivious, even though I'm sure kids were giggling and going and looking at the computer. But most of the things that I read is that we need teachers that are going to walk the room and that know what sites their kids are on and what they're looking at and what they're actually doing. And I don't know how often that actually happens. I think a lot of times they could be a little oblivious to what's really going on. And kids are getting very good. My son was saying that he was using Google Docs to chat with his friend on the other side of the classroom. And I know he's not allowed to do that, but he thought it was pretty cool and creative. But the teachers need to be aware of what these kids are doing and need to walk that classroom. Okay, just a minute. Do you guys have any?
Do you think, or did you see anything about limiting the amount of like children on computers or Chromebooks? And because I've seen some classrooms where they're full, every child has their own Chromebook. And then I've seen some where they only have 4 really nice computers, but they do that so that the teachers can be more aware of what's going on. Did you see anything about that? About comparing the benefits?
You know what? I didn't, but that's actually a good thought. Maybe there needs to be less Chromebooks in a classroom at a time so a teacher can be more aware of what's going on. I did notice too that I looked at our school district's policies, and I think it really is so different with different school districts and what they, the time that they allow. My daughter is on her Chromebook most of the time at school, and they do a lot of their class work through that Chromebook. And so, and I know one of our school district's goals was they had a 3-year goal, and by the end of the 3 years, they wanted 90% of the children to be literate in knowing how to use the internet, how to research, how to use, I mean, they had a list of all the different things that they wanted to make sure by 2016 the kids were doing. And it was very eye-opening, actually. So I mean, our kids in our school, each of them have a Chromebook.
Maren, we need to blend our persuasive speeches, and we need to fight back.
No, I mean,
addiction and technology use.
It's so true. And you know what? My eyes have been very open to the things that our kids are seeing and the things my kids come home and tell me. And that's why going back to what somebody said earlier, like how do we protect our kids, is that book. Here's what the book looks like. It's good pictures, bad pictures. But I've talked to my kids early about it to where that saved my daughter because she knew what they were doing that day wasn't right and that she needed to do something about it. And it's sad that we have to talk to 3rd and 4th graders about this stuff, but we have to, or they're going to be curious. But the book is all about how they use their feeling brain is different from their thinking brain. And when their feeling brain takes over, when they see pornography, that how to then connect that thinking brain that this isn't right, turn it off, go tell a parent. Like it gives them an actual plan. Best thing I've ever done for my kids. And I talk about it often because I do not want my kids to have to deal with that. But just the thought of kids Googling nasty things at school, and you think you're teaching your kids, but then they could be sitting next to another child who's searching pornography. It's like we can do what we can at home, but I feel like the schools also need to support us and back us up because I can't control what that kid next to my daughter is doing. And it really does fire me up. But it also has made me more aware of my own school district, and I have questions, and I'm like, okay, now I need to go and do something about it, and not just be fired up, but do something about it. So, all right, and you know what? I'll let the next person go, And then I have to leave in about 10 minutes to go and get my kids from school. So if I need to go back and watch some of the recording, I will. I'll do that. So I apologize. So.
All right, I think it's my turn. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. I think I'm the last one, so I should be good. All right. My name is Amanda Doherty, and my speech is about materialism. Last year on Thanksgiving Day, we had family come over and had a wonderful dinner. We enjoyed each other's company, ate delicious pies, and expressed gratitude for our blessings. Also last year on Thanksgiving Day, many of us left our families at home to join the hundreds of people at Walmart to stand in long lines for Black Friday deals. Why do we do this? Why do we leave our families on such an important holiday to go shopping? We do this because we live in a materialistic society. According to Oxford Dictionary, materialism is a tendency to consider material possessions and physical comfort as more important than spiritual values. We buy lots of things because that is our culture. In fact, Americans are perceived as some of the most materialistic people in the world. The World Watch Institute states 3.1% of the world's children live in America, but they consume 40% of the world's toys. So why do we Americans have to have lots of things? Researchers have found that many feel that the American dream is measured by materialism. In other words, the more things you have, the more intelligent and successful you are. Let's see how materialism affects our society. Over time, we have become more materialistic. World Watch Institute provides a statistic that American homes are 38% bigger today than they were in 1975, even with fewer household members. The fact that in recent years, Black Friday shopping has now begun on Thanksgiving Day is another evidence that Americans are becoming more materialistic over time. In our culture, we value personal achievement and individual freedoms, but this can also create a desire for more material things. The desire to have more things means we do less for other people. According to author Stephen Lamp, materialism is the cause of big government. As long as materialism exists, the government will feel the need to dispossess other countries of their resources to benefit their own citizens. Big government may also feel the need to protect the weaker and less fortunate citizens by becoming involved in all aspects of society. Prager University lists some of the negative effects of big government, which includes decreases in the overall goodness, character, and liberty of the people. In other words, big government causes people to be less charitable and feel entitled. Materialism also affects our jobs. When we want more things, we may acquire more debt and may have to work longer hours. Because of the rise in working hours, there is less time left for family and children. Parents tend to make up for lost time with their children by buying them toys or nice clothes. However, more material possessions can negatively affect children's relationships with others, as it creates competition, jealousy, and social comparison in schools and in other areas of the community. Relationships within families also suffer as children feel more and more entitled to material possessions, but do not want to work for them. Children today are also spending more time by themselves on electronic devices, while parents spend more time working. Many studies prove that materialism does not lead to happiness and can actually cause feelings of low self-worth, low well-being, and low life satisfaction, especially when materialistic goals cannot be reached. So what can we do? First, we can remove aspects of society from our lives that promote materialism, such as the media. And if they cannot be completely removed, we should look at them with a critical eye. Second, we need to increase the importance of intrinsic values in our society, such as self-mastery, spirituality, kindness, charity, and so forth. Spending more time with family can accomplish this by enhancing relationships, creating teaching opportunities, and maybe even bringing us to realize that people are more important than things. One thing the government can do is to create policies that focus on intrinsic rather than extrinsic values. Country successes are measured by their gross domestic product, or GDP. GDP provides numbers as to how much a country is spending. However, it does not tell us anything about the well-being or progress of a country. Blogger Jeremy Williams suggests that alternative measures of progress be used that measure the well-being of a country. Results from these measures could lead to some beneficial changes. Because materialism can negatively impact families, another focus should be on strengthening the family. Government can make efforts to take a family perspective in policymaking by involving professionals in family advocacy. The U.S. Army's Family Advocacy Program is a great example of how government can be involved in strengthening families. Employers could also grant longer maternity leaves for working mothers, longer leave times for parents, and even consider on-site daycare for employees with small children. Family-friendly policies such as these creates less stress by allowing families more time together and less time to be influenced by our materialistic culture. As a result, there would be happier people in the world who are more empathetic, honest, selfless, kind, humble, and who value people more than material things. Thank you. Open for questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
Should we not seek wealth? Is it wrong?
Well, you know, I think that, so they criticized Americans in the articles that I've researched for being materialistic in that they spend a lot of money. But I think that what the article was saying was that people are just become so obsessed by it that they spend money they don't have to get those things. So I think it's okay to, you know, like desire wealth. I mean, everybody does. Everybody wants to be financially secure and stable and things like that. But the research I found stated that a lot of people go into debt. And I think it's something like the average American carries a balance of like $12,000 in debt or something like that. And I mean, it could be for things like medical reasons and emergencies, but a lot of people go into debt to get things that they don't really want or need just to keep up with society. And that's where it becomes a problem, is when you go into debt to do that.
Were there any alternatives to your argument? Did you find anything that talked about how materialism is beneficial for society or for people?
Oh yeah, there was a couple articles I researched for the first paper we wrote, and we had to do an opposition. And there was an article that said, yeah, go ahead, buy what you want because it makes you feel good. If it makes you feel good, then you're happy. And I mean, I understand that to a point, but like, for example, I have things that I want because, you know, I think it's cool and it may make me happy, but then I'll feel guilty because, well, I could have spent that money on something else. So I think it just, a lot of it, the article that I read said that it depends on your personality is what it said. It depends on what kind of person you are and how acquiring material things makes you feel. And for me, I guess, like, it doesn't make me feel good because I feel guilty if I spend my money on something that I should have spent it on something else or saved it. But some people feel absolutely, like my husband, for example, he feels fine. He can go out and buy whatever and he won't feel guilty at all. So, and I think that's a valid argument too, that it just depends on personality. Anyone else?
I thought you did a good job. I like the experience that you shared. And I think it really is acquiring wealth, but then balancing that out with those values that you spoke about. And that if we acquire wealth, but it's like, do we spend that wealth? Are we feeding the poor? Mm-hmm. Are we, helping the single mother? Like, how are we actually using that? Because I feel like on those different levels, like for me, that feels better than to go buy myself a new pair of shoes, to actually say, oh, I could help somebody. But I think what I gained from it was a good reminder that to use those values to guide me on how I am going to spend my money.
Right. That's a great point to make. Yeah. I mean, it's okay to have things. It's okay to, even want things, but what's the purpose? What's the reason behind it? What are we really doing it for? And, oh my gosh, I forgot what I was going to say. So a lot of the things I researched talked about focusing on intrinsic values and focusing on what is, really important, things that can't be bought and sold. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's really shared in our families, and that's really taught in our families. And also, we're not supposed to talk about religion, but also in church. But even throughout the community groups, if we find volunteer groups that we like to spend time with, or we can share those values. And then, I think that the more time we spend with our family and with people we love and care about and share those intrinsic values with each other and really build them up, I don't think material things will matter as much. Mm-hmm. I just feel like we place too much importance on it,
Mm-hmm. I love that. Did you come up with this topic yourself?
Yeah, first I started with because I went on that Google Doc where everyone was picking stuff. Yeah. And I was like, everybody took everything. So then I had to come up with something, and I'm like, oh, what?
It's a good topic. It's unique. I was like, wow, how's she gonna do this topic? So good job. I thought you did great.
Thanks. So. I thought that too. I was like, what am I gonna do? But there's actually a lot of articles about it, but a lot of it was also blogs, things that I couldn't really use. It wasn't scholarly or credible and things like that. So I had to really dig.
Yeah. Well, I know as a nanny, and I still babysit now, and I have a lot of parents that both work, even though really they could live off one salary. Mm. And I see what the children lose out on, even though they have these fancy homes and really nice cars, and they're able to afford a lot more than we can, because my husband's the only one that works. But these kids miss out on a lot more that money would never replace. And it really makes me think, what do I want to give my kids?
Right. And that's how the topic started. The topic started with the dangers of both parents working outside the home when they don't need to. That's how it started. And then it kind of developed into this materialism.
But I like that. I think it's good.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right. Everybody did a good job. Way to go.
Yeah, I think we all did.
Okay. Are we good? I might have to sneak away.
I think we're good.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Thanks,
Yay, it's over.
Hey. And I'll post the link on the discussion board.
Sounds good.